Searching for just the right job? Whether you're looking for full-time, part-time, or seasonal work, you can get started today. Amazon Jobs offers the whole package with great pay and flexible shifts that allow you to choose when and how much you work. Find a warehouse close to home and discover the role that works for you. To get your application started for an hourly job, go to amazon.com/apply. That's amazon.com/apply. Amazon is proud to be an equal opportunity employer.
Live life at your pace. Click the banner or go to visitwilliamsburg.com to discover how. Because here in Williamsburg, life moves at one pace, yours. Here, our waters are splashing and rejuvenating. Our history is for seeing and experiencing. Our theme parks are for riding and sometimes flying. And our great outdoors are yours for exploring and restoring. It's all waiting for you in Williamsburg. Book your trip today and live life at your pace.
Stand by. The vacuum tubes are warming up. This is a special live broadcast right here on Georgia Radio.
Well, welcome once again. This is Wade and here with Matt Jolly on Georgia Radio, georgiaradio.com. And if you want a good show, we have a good show tonight here on the Georgia Folk and Farm Life radio program brought to you by Meeks Brothers Cattle Company. And tonight we have our group member and friend, Anthony Jackson. And Anthony's he's like myself, he's a truck driver. He's hauled logs and hauled containers, those things, and he lives over near Newington. But he's a photographer that has some amazing skills, not just his photography, but then his, there's a concept called added value in products in the marketplace, where you take something that's got a certain value and that's a commodity. But then if you can add value, you've got something different and something new. And Anthony does that. He has added value. He adds an artistic eye and approach and modification to photographs. And it's a new art form to me. When I see his photographs, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I don't know how you do that. I don't think I could do it. You have to have an eye for it. And you have to know I think you have to kind of know what you're going for when you start. And that's where art comes in. When a man or a woman or anyone can see, this is a vision of what I want to create before it's created. And that's what you do. Anthony, you with us?
Yes, sir.
All right, talk to us. Just tell us about who you are and what you do. Your photography. How did you get into this? How long have you had a love for photography? So tell us about how you got into it and kind of the progress you made as a man and a photographer in the field of photography.
Okay, I started. I went to go to work in Savannah, and my load wasn't ready, and I think it was about 2 a.m, maybe 2 a.m. So she said, "Well, give us a couple hours. We'll be in the office around 7." So I said, "You know what? I got my camera. Let me go to the Tybee Island." And I hadn't been to Tybee Island before I went in like 5 years. The difference is it was December 19th. And if you can recall, they were putting sand back on the beach.
Right.
Now, I didn't know this.
Project, yeah.
Exactly. I got to the beach. It was 29 degrees. So I was freezing. So I went out. It was nice. Nobody was there. It was quiet. So then I went back to my car, and I set my camera up for long exposure. And then I went back out, took some photos. Sat on for about a week or two. Cedric Bacon inspired me to get into photography out of Facebook. And he told me about your group. Because before that, I would post on my page, and it would get like maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3. And I forgot what I posted in that group. I posted the photo in your group, and I went to sleep, and I woke up. It was around 400. I was like, wait a minute, that can't be it. It can't be 400. And I'm looking through the comments like, wait a minute. And I was beginning to see something about his photography makes you feel something. Mm-hmm. And I heard somebody say it to me before about that. I was like, okay. So when I go out and shoot, I'm going to have, not an advantage, but a perspective that I don't see much people doing. Not say it's right or wrong, but I didn't see that in many people's comments. So I will go out and shoot in a perspective of not with a tripod. I wanted my photographs, when you see them, you knew it was my work, and it clicked or touch the memory in your brain to take you back to childhood. So then you have my picture, and then you have a memory of your childhood. That's a connection. So it might have you wanting to, let me see what else you can post, or what else you're going to show. And that's when I started. When I really got confident in posting on Facebook after I posted a couple of pictures in yoga. Now, it wasn't that good. They wasn't that good. But to see the feedback, and from my page, maybe 4 or 5 people, or in your page, it was like 400. Then the next week I posted one that got like 1,000. That blew me away. I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that people love photography as much as I thought they would love it, because on my page, I didn't get that. Maybe it wasn't in photography. I'm not sure. Maybe they knew me. But I started by doing that, by going to the beach that night. And in January, I posted, I think January, February, I posted in your group, because I was about to stop doing it. And I talked to Cedric. He was like, man, don't stop. Just do it. He said, try this group out. And he sent me the link. Matter of fact, he sent me an invite. I selected, and so that's how I started. December 19th, Tetra Bacon, your group is what started me posting on social media. Even on Instagram.
Let me interrupt you. I did not know that. I just assumed that you had been, like, say, Harvey Williams and others had been posting in other places. I didn't know that it started, the genesis of it, as you're talking about, was on Georgia. That's great. So that's what I like about Georgia Folk and Farm Life. It's a place, a vehicle, a venue, and you never know what's going to take off on there. Really, you never know. Sometimes simple things, surprise you. Sometimes things that you don't think will get much attention do. And we've got some great members on there, and that I like that. I really like the fact that that Georgia Folk and Farm Life has been that good to you and has helped. So what kind of equipment do you use? And tell us a little about kind of the process of, because you create such an artistic photography. It's a unique thing. You found a kind of a niche thing. When I see yours, I'm like, there's a beautiful, haunting images that you create that I don't see anybody else doing exactly what you do. And that's the thing about it. When you're doing something that there's not a lot of people doing it, it makes it special. So talk to us about exactly kind of what you do there.
All right, they had the Canon T6, and again, that brings him up again. I asked Cedric about the camera, and I bought one. He said, that's a pretty good camera to use, and it's a DSLR. Now, the process, as you can see in the comments, it kind of confused some of the people, some of our members in the group. They'll say, hey, I don't like that at night. That's not possible. And I'm like, well, it's possible, but it's called long exposure. And what that means is the camera lens stays open for, like, let's just say 30 minutes or a minute or time lapse. So when it happens, it pulls in all the light that our eyes can't see. So then what I would do, I would post it. And if you live in a city like Savannah, you're never going to see that unless it's a blackout. Post to it. So I would post that, but I would do long exposure, and I would take shots, and I learned take 1,000 shots. Out of 1,000 shots, you might edit 100. Out of 100, you might post 5. I learned that.
Wow.
Like on my iPhone, I have 35,000 pictures on my iPhone just to save them. I have like 18 SD cards all fill up. But the process is, you can see it in the group, people say, well, how'd you get on River Street with nobody? I will always go places with nobody. Here's why. If you go somewhere and you see a car, date, your mind will date how old that picture is, because you know how old the car is. If you see somebody's shoes, it'll date. So I will make sure I will go when you didn't see anybody, of course myself, but you won't see me, I'm taking pictures. So the only thing that can tell the story is what I'm shooting. I didn't want people in the picture because those shoes might tell what date it is. That car can tell what date it is. I try my best not to do that. So if we put a black and white filter over it, you couldn't really date it unless you said, well, the Queen, Georgia Queen was built this day. So we'll go from that way. I will always make sure I would shoot. If you look, you hardly ever see people in my photos.
You're right, but I never thought about that until you mentioned it. Yeah.
And that's why I do that, because, and if you say it's a long exposure, you have somebody walk by slow, it's going to be a blur in front of the camera. So people say, hey, you going to go to the beach? I hardly ever go to the beach in the summertime. But in the wintertime, always there. I might go in the very beginning to catch the Milky Way, and the end of it when it's getting kind of cool, because it's not not that much traffic. So when I go, I make sure wherever I am, there isn't people or cars or automobiles in the shot to date the shot. So if you see it, you can be from the 70s or grew up in the 60s. If you see it, you won't see that new car, and you didn't have a new car in the 70s. It didn't look like that. So if you see it, it might flash back to when you was there in the first man. You can see the comments. People say the photographer eyes water. The first person to say that came out of that group. Out of that group, they said that. And then I seen it was like a stream of comments under that saying, "Hey, me too." And then and if you look at the very bottom, is a long chain. And those two people was at the very bottom of the comment section of my in thread that photo, talking about their childhood life in the 60s. Now, I wasn't born in the 60s, but you have a piece of art on a computer screen that have friends that grew up and no longer see each other, reminiscing about childhood because the photo jarred that memory. That's why I do that.
Well, Anthony, it's when you say that, it makes me think of hearing what you described your work makes me think of things I hadn't really thought about. Like you say, you don't take pictures so that with people and automobiles or things that can date something, and that allows each person viewing your photograph to make it their own, to interpret it in their own way. If there were other things in there, they couldn't personalize it to themselves. Is that what you're trying to do? Make it where people that appreciate your photography can make it their own, really.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I had to learn that.
That's a neat concept. I love that concept.
And I learned that because
Anthony, that says that you're thinking outside the box, and not only outside the box, but outside of yourself. Very few people can do that. Now, that's art right there. That's artistic mind. When you can think, you're including your audience. You're doing it for yourself first, and then you're doing it not for applause or plaudits, or you're doing it because any artist seeks appreciation for their work and wants it shared. And so, but when you make it personal to the audience, you're going to step beyond. And I like that. All right, go ahead. Now I'm through for a minute.
No, and that's why I did that, because you have somebody. Let's say I put a Mustang in a picture. Well, this guy likes Chevrolet. He won't pay the picture no attention, and we build like that. We don't know that consciously, but subconsciously we're built that way. I don't like the Chevrolet. They won't even look at the whole picture, but because they'll see the car. And I realized that it's not that he can hate Ford. He prefers this. But I remove all of that and just show Earth as it is, untouched, buildings, trees, or whatever. Then whoever sees that can make that picture their own.
I like that.
If you ever do a picture, Anthony, of a late model Dodge pickup truck, we know a guy named Harvey Williams Jr. that would love to hang it on his wall.
Hey, that's the man. I know if you own Georgia Folk and Farm Life, you know who Harvey Williams is, and he's a great friend. I love Harvey. Harvey, I got to know him through his photography, through Georgia Folk and Farm Life, and he's been such a blessing in my life. And I think sometimes I talk too much about Harvey, but I don't think there's such thing as talking about. Harvey's he's a great photographer, but he's such a, my God, what a great man he is. If you know him, the humility and the wisdom that's packed in that man, amazing. He amazes me. And you know what I love the fact that Georgia Folk and Farm Life has been is a vehicle to help promote up and coming people that maybe wouldn't get the exposure, like you and Harvey and others. They're writers and photographers both. By the way, I'm battling. Conway is driving me crazy right there. He's wired.
We have to keep dragging the microphone down so it's not the Conway show tonight. But Anthony, I wanted to jump in here. It's Matt Jolly, and I'm just going to sit back here enjoying this tonight. Some of your stuff, to me, you add in elements. At least I think you do. I don't think that deer just stood there for that long exposure the way. But how do you discern? What is it like? You remember Bob Ross, the painter? Is it like Bob Ross, where you would just say, "I think this needs a deer," or "I think this needs a cloud," or what? How do you make that call as an artist? Because it's not cheesy the way you do it. It's not campy. It looks like there should be a deer there.
It was meant to be. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how do you do that?
I can't think of this guy's name. You name one of them, and somebody else named another guy that was pretty popular in paints and stuff. And I've never got a comparison. But I'll say this. I did that one time with a deer, and he was still for about 5 seconds, ran off. So the shot was blurry. So it's like you can't shoot the deer because they're gonna hear you regardless, and they're gonna smell you. So I look and I say, what is this missing? The first thing I make sure I don't think of is the automobile, nothing mechanical, mechanical. I rule that out. So what? Because it can't be anything small because it has to be close to the camera. So then if you look, I have to also place those there with the correct field perception and depth perception, because it can't be one by close to me really small and then one in the very background huge. That throw the whole shot off. So I have to gauge how big the building is, have to gauge how big the road is, about 2 inches up from the bottom. I gauge all those things to make sure when I put them in, it don't look like it stands out, they don't belong.
Well, it's good stuff. I love that one image. To me, Wade, the image I'm thinking of, it almost looks like the old schoolhouse out there by your place.
I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
Listen, it's time for we're about halfway through the show.
Well,
read
break. Your commercial real quick. Just read it, and then we'll come right back.
I don't have my copy, and I'll just tell you.
Yeah, let's just talk about Meeks.
Yeah. I don't have my copy on hand, so you're not dealing with a professional, Matt.
Well, that's right.
What do you think?
You're the highest paid guy around here, so don't.
Yeah, and I would have my ad copy on hand here during the show at the middle of the show when we do the break. That's amazing, right there. You would expect that, but I will say this. Thank you to Meeks Brothers Cattle Company. Steve Meeks and the boys, they have a great locally owned company here where they provide it is not some but the finest grass-fed, grain-finished beef. They've got beautiful cows. I love their cows. They're beautiful, and they have just it's a quality product, and you can buy a whole cow, a half a cow, quarter, any amount you want, and it's vacuum sealed and put in the freezer. You keep up to 3 years. The meat is beautiful. If you see the ground beef, the steak, when you see in what they have and you compare what you see in your grocery store, that, the pink, drab, pale stuff you see in the grocery store, that is not what you get from Meeks Brothers Cattle, because you get a premium, vibrant, you just have to see it to believe it. And check them out on Facebook. And, Meeks Brothers Cattle Company. And I appreciate them sponsoring Georgia Folk and Farm Life Radio here on Georgia Radio.
I keep telling them nobody beats Meeks. and it's the best stuff you'll ever find. All right, we'll be right back right after this.
Country, that's what I grew up listening to.
Georgia Radio. We love you more than peanuts and peaches. So glad you're here.
Well, we made it back here. I'm here with Conway, who is acting up and having a good time during the show tonight. So if you may have heard Oink Pig a while ago, and him, Conway, and I don't have to tell you.
Is that what you call that thing, the Oink Pig?
Oink Pig, yeah. Uh-huh. He and Oink Pig were going to town, as they say, a while ago. But we're having fun. He's chewing my hand off, but other than that, I've got two, and maybe I can get by. But we're here with our guest tonight, Anthony Jackson. Anthony, our friend, is a part of Georgia Folk and Farm Life, and we're just proud of him. His amazing skills in photography and the eye. That's when you combine an eye for an artistic talent and an eye for photography and for seeing a photograph that he is going to generate. It's amazing, his work. You just have to see it. You can't describe it. You have to go on Georgia Folk and Farm Life and look at his work and look on his page on Facebook. Welcome back, Anthony. Talk to us some more. We got a few more minutes here to talk.
I've got a couple of questions for you. I wanted to know because I'm fascinated by artists and the way that you see the world. I'm just curious. Was Savannah your home as a child? I mean, because what an incredible place to live and be exposed to. I'm guessing you're down there quite a bit. You mentioned Savannah.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm up here in Scrivener County by the racetrack, but I will say this. I am not a city person. And not that I don't like the city. It's just when to me, when I'm around man-made structures a lot, the natural part of me as photography, it kind of takes the beat, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather be closer to nature. So when I go out and shoot, what I shoot will reflect how I feel. If I'm in the city, then what I shoot will reflect that kind of background. But then it's man-made structures. I like taking pictures of things that natural. That mountain been here for 12, 13, 14,000 years. Okay, somebody might find that picture in 2,000 or 3,000 years or 4,000 years, and it might resemble that. But a city will be gone, change, and rearrange all that stuff. So I would drive an hour there early in the morning, wait for the sun to come up, take my shots, photos, and then come back, edit them, and post them probably later at night. Or I'll go out late that night to catch the sunrise, or I'll go out late in certain areas and shoot, the stars of long exposure. When I'm out, you will hardly ever see me. I did that one time. I think I posted in that group also. I'm going to be out on Tybee. It was kind of cool. And I will never do that again. Not because I didn't enjoy it, but I didn't fact that people was going to probably want to talk to me about photography. It was a small crowd. And I couldn't shoot because I had to answer questions. I didn't want to be rude. So I was answering questions, was talking, and it's like I couldn't shoot anything. It was asking questions. I was answering. I was setting my camera, like, what kind of technique is this? What is that? So I was like, yeah, I might not do that again. Because I wanted to do that for them to come out, but it became kind of overwhelming. So I didn't even shoot anything. I spoke a lot, and that was it.
Well, I was just thinking it might be sometime you might want to set aside a time to invite people to come and just, instead of really concentrating on making photographs that morning, show them what you do and just making an event like that such that, to benefit others. Because people have questions, and I know they see your work. They wonder, how does he do that? And it's not something you really explain. You probably have to see, but a lot of what your work is done after you leave and get back home, I'm sure, and get back on your computer, and then you can take the elements you've gathered and make that final creation, right?
That's correct.
But I'll say this in Anthony's defense, because I've looked at his work, and I mean, you can't put a deer out there in the field like that. You got to drop that in post, as they say. But this is the work of a talented photographer who understands aperture and understands lighting and understands all of that. I think it's really cool the way you're putting this stuff together, Anthony. I really do. I applaud the effort that goes into it. The long exposure stuff is difficult. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. You got to have a good tripod, because, boy, Wade, you and I could never do it. I mean, if you get an itch, or if you get the wind, there's just no way. There's no way to do it. Everything would be blurry.
Well, Anthony, if you ever tried to get a kid to do some work, a little child that's, you say that's too young, and you put them out there to do some work, and as soon as you're not looking, they turn around and following the bug off. A little bug's crawling away. They're following it, and they're not doing what you sent them out there to do. That's me. I'm that little kid, and I can do the, simple things quick on the, I've taken some beautiful photographs by accident out of the window of a log truck. I can, I have, but when you take, if you take 10,000 photographs out of the window of a log truck, and you can find a dozen out of those that wow people, it makes it seem like but I know nothing about photography. So when I see someone like you and the others that amaze me with the work you do, I'm like, well, there's no need in me trying to learn to do that. All I will do is appreciate what you do. That's as far as I'm going with it. I'm just going to keep saying wow, wow, wow. But I'm not. I don't have the ability to reach the. What's your? I have a question. One thing I want to ask you this. We're getting close to the end of the show, and what is on the horizon now? Have you I keep going back to Harvey, because I follow Harvey's career as a photographer, and he's constantly changing and moving in new directions. Is there a direction in photography that's intriguing to you right now? Is there something? I know all artists go through periods where, you had the blue period, the famous artists in the past, they had the blue period or this period they would go through, or they would concentrate on certain things. What is coming up that excites you right now in what you're doing? Maybe something new or different.
Well, the next thing I'm doing, I have some software I'm going to purchase, and it's going to still be photography. But as you were speaking about the picture with the deer, That kind of photography is like a 3D, so you can actually, it'll kind of play, but you can see the camera feel like it's moving past the deer and past the building to the other deer, and you can kind of move the picture around and still see all the objects. It's like a motion picture almost. That's what I'm trying to get to do. That's very, very hard to do that. It's very hard, and even with this photography, I didn't take any classes at all. I just taught myself. Somebody taught me how to do photography.
Well, I think that's some of the. I think you've done very well, and he's a good mentor, evidently. One thing I want to bring up that you might not want to, not trying to blindside you, but I just want to say the other day, the elephant in the room that happened recently was the Georgia Guidestones thing, and it happened like I asked you to be a member, a guest tonight. It was like the next day, this thing just blew up, and I mean that literally and figuratively. And I had no idea that you had been a fan of the Guidestones, and when
well, you have a great image of it too. I mean,
it's a great image, and I've been aware of the Guidestones. I know I was never a fan of it, but it didn't bother me. I really didn't understand what it was all about. You've really enjoyed the Guidestones and appreciated it, but you got a lot. You generated some. As Neil Boris used to say, you stirred the pudding with that one. But I want to say something. And we don't have to agree on things like any issue like that.
Right.
I don't care one way about the other about the guys. It evidently meant a lot to you, and you have. I want to respect that. See, that's respect for other people. We don't have to be the same or have the same belief ideology about any part of social life or history or this nation as it exists, but we can be friends and we don't have to get mad about things. But what I want to say thank you for the other day, as far as I know, some people got a little ugly in their comments or fired up. They got a little excited, but you didn't. You stayed above the fray. I looked at it and I kept saying, well, Anthony's going to lose it with so many people, but you didn't. And so I wrote a little thing, and I wanted people to calm down about it. And I said, I don't know what God thinks about Georgia Guidestones, but I know some of y'all's comments to Anthony probably bother God more than a pile of rocks ever did. And so, that's true. I was impressed by that, and it made me all the more glad that I had asked you to be, and it just happened this way. This was a flash in the pan, as they say. And
careful, Wade. Flashing in Elberton, apparently. Where did you take that image?
Flash in the pan is an old photography.
And let me add something real quick. This is not to offend anybody. If you look, I was kind of laughing, like not picking. I was like, y'all, come on, it's not this serious. But this is what I try to tell people, keep it in perspective. Now, I'm going to be quick. Now, this is why I think people didn't read this stuff. Now, I know the Stone said, it said maintain population 500 million. I'm going to leave it alone. That's what it says at the very top. The population in America in 1980 was 230 million. So when he wrote that, he was speaking for the future. He spoke, and it was half that. It was 230 million people in America in 1980. That's when it came up. So if you look at it now, you're like, okay, I got it. But when you gauge something, first thing think of, when was this created? Yesterday? Okay, that's a big difference. Yesterday, to say that. No, it's the 80s. Okay, let's do some research. What's the population? Oh man, what do you have for that? Because at some point, let's say 2 billion people in America, and then make one now and say maintain at 4 billion. Who would get mad? We're not at 4 billion yet.
Right.
So then if you look at then, it said 200, it was 500 million, but back then it was only 230-something million people in America. He was speaking about America. That was it.
Right.
That's all it was.
Well, what was funny, the whole thing, I never saw the Guidestones, and I was surprised, and we got to end the show pretty quick, so wind it down, but I was surprised at how quickly when the Stones were damaged, it kind of boggled my mind at how quickly whoever the state or whoever, I don't even know who owned this place, how quickly they went in and demolished it, and it was gone before the day was over. And it was like, there's got to be more to this story.
That was funny.
I mean, usually you can't get the government to, take any actions that quickly. So it's a thing intrigues me, but we'll talk about it on Georgia Folk and Farm Life, but we're not going to make it a bad thing and make it ugly. God don't like the ugly, as they say.
When did you take that image, Anthony? Because it's a really cool image.
I've gone there probably 4 or 5 times. So it was those I think each shot, I'm pretty sure each shot and long exposure was a different time. One was the long exposure, the long exposure kind of like a video, that was in summertime. The sunset with the sun set, and that was in the summertime.
I see.
All right, hey, Anthony, we're down to 1 minute. I should say, so just to satisfy some of these people that I love our group members, but some of them that worry about, you don't go up there and do hippie things in the middle of the night with the devil or anything up there. Right?
No, no.
That would ruin the image, Wade. If too much bumping around up there for Anthony.
Too much human involved.
That's right. Well, that too. Hey, I enjoyed this tonight, Anthony. Thanks for coming on. This was fun.
I've had a ball with you, Anthony, and I appreciate it. So thank you for coming on and being such a great guy.
No problem.
It's been a tumultuous week, I know, and we've had a little fun with it. And that's what the way to handle all these things is enjoy it, have fun with it, laugh about it, move on. And thank you. Thank you for coming on tonight with us. And as keep on trucking, my friend.
I sure will.
Hey, go check out Meeks Brothers Cattle Company, Wade, on Facebook, right? There you go.
Makes me want to go get a steak out of the freezer right now.
All right. There you go.
Yeah.
And see you next week, Wade. Thanks again, Anthony.
All right, bye.
So long.
All right.
Thanks, Anthony.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Georgia Folk and Farm Life Show here on GeorgiaRadio.com, brought to you in part by our friends at Meeks Brothers Cattle Company. You can find them at Facebook.com there. Just look for Meeks Brothers Cattle Company. I'm Matt Jolly, and I'll talk to you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. right here on your home for good company and great country, Georgia Radio. Glad you're here.
Country, that's what I grew up listening to.
Georgia Radio. We love you more than peanuts and peaches. So glad you're here.
Life can always use more Cedar Point. And right now, you can get more Cedar Point for less with the Fun Day Bundle. Each bundle saves you more than 35% on admission, parking, and dining for one low price. That means more coasters like Steel Vengeance and Millennium Force, and even more excitement with the Cedar Point Parade and Spectacular. But you better hurry because this bundle won't last long. Save now at cedarpoint.com.
Casper's most sparkling sale of the season is here. This summer, dive into your best sleep and save up to $600 off any of our award-winning mattresses during our 4th of July sale. And get up to 50% off pillows, duvets, bedding, and more. Make summer sleep your best sleep with up to $600 off mattresses and up to 50% off everything else. Shop our 4th of July sale at Casper.com or a participating store near you. Going on now through 7/13. Exclusions apply. See Casper.com/promo.